I'm Chris. How you doing, everybody? You should know the drill by now. We're into the second season of the 11th lead actor's tenure on the show. If you're watching this as your first video,
what are you doing?
good luck.
What are you doing?
Yeah, we are going to be talking spoilers, obviously, for the episodes ahead. So beware. I'm also behind the camera, and not Chris is in front of the camera, because the living room's in a bit of a pickle. Some painting and DIY is going on right now, so it's just easier for us to use this ladder as a table. The stories we'll be talking about today are The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon, and The Curse of the Black Spot. Before we begin, though, it's a weird display going on this time, right?
What do you mean?
Well, for starters, it feels like there should be more on that table. No, actually, no, it's quite full.
Yeah, I can see it's full.
Yeah, anyway, sorry, I'll look back at you now. So there's not really much on that table.
No,
it's just a
it's
Matt
not
Smith
really.
toy. Ha! We made the joke.
Yeah,
Moving
that's
on.
it. That's the last time we'll do it.
If we had any more dedication, I would be subtly getting you to Sharpie tally marks on your hands and pausing the camera every now and again. But we're not going to bother.
I have a life to live.
Yeah. So the silencer, NTS, which they're not referred to in this story, they're referred to as the silence. We'll get to all that later, obviously.
Bless you.
Are here in front of us. These are some of the last really good concurrent with the series action figures that they ever made.
I was just commenting on how good they are.
Yeah, I used to have 3 of them. The other one was another screaming one who had lightning effects, so his hands were sort of skinnier. Do you remember? He had skinnier hands because you sort of slotted the lightning effect around the hands. eBayed him a couple of years ago, but I always found that really odd that it was like they didn't build a lightning effect that could fit around the hands that pre-existed for the previous 2 figures. They built smaller hands. So
I feel like
their famous penis fingers, suddenly there was one with a really pair of weedy penis fingers, and it was like, that's very strange.
I do feel like the Doctor Who figures have, since the Tennant era, have kind of gone, yeah.
Oh,
what?
Series 6 is the last series where they released a load of figures concurrently with the show. I got most of them. There's a bunch of them that you will see over the next few weeks, and a load which I've sold since, because I just wanted to make room, and we had a wedding to pay for before we first started this marathon for you guys. So,
oh my gosh, were we not married when we started this?
We were. We first started watching April 2018. The video started coming out June, July 2018. Yeah.
Oh
We got married later that year.
This year we'll have been married 4 years.
Yeah, I'm terribly sorry. But amongst the figures sold was the Astronaut. I owned the first release of the Astronaut, which had the child's face inside.
Oh, the child.
There was a reissue of it later, but we'll get to that when we get to the relevant episode. It was a great figure. As far as having, if people ever want to make a NASA style spaceman display, seek out the Impossible Astronaut Doctor Who figure.
Whoa.
It's a really good astronaut figure. I also had, I had the bearded Doctor, and I had the bearded Doctor in the straitjacket, because when this series came out, I had the disposable income and was collecting this. This was the range of things I collected.
Yeah.
So I bought all of them. Fair few have been and gone, but I also, because I'd got the Steelbook, one of my first ever Steelbooks I ever bought, version of Series 5 back in 2010, the big chunky one you guys saw in the last few videos, with the cracking time across the front. I wanted the collector's one for this series, which happened to be this. So that was kind of cool, right? That's a silent there on the front. It's a photo sculpt. And it's it's raised, which is very, very cool. That's a lot of detail. None of it's lost in the sculpture. Problem is, it's really thick. It's not just a slight emboss. It's huge. At least he's talking to the dog for those who are confused. It's huge. So when you put this on a shelf, this is what it looks like.
don't be sick.
It does not look good up against other things on a shelf. Luckily, the insert is... oh, don't you bother, Mr. Silence. The insert is a normal Blu-ray case, so that's usually what's on the shelf, just to make things easier. But I just thought I'd show it off, because I'm probably eventually just going to trade this in and buy a standard Blu-ray version of this set, which might not be a bad shout. Because this was one of the early releases, what have we had to deal with while watching it? Especially in darker scenes.
Weird, graphic-y graininess.
Grain effects. Like a sandy, grainy thing across darker scenes. Which was... Because we had to look it up. We were like, is it our TV? I know we've just changed new HDMI leads. I know the TV's getting on. We've not got the new TV yet. Is it just being a bit weird? Nope. The early original issue of the Blu-rays had this fault. And if you inquired about it back in 2011, BBC Shop or whatever were like, yeah, sure. Or 2 Entertain were like, yeah, we'll send you replacement discs. But I never knew about it because I was watching it on a much smaller, not high-definition television.
I never knew
when I first got it. So I never spotted what was wrong with it.
Sorry.
Now we're watching it on a 50-inch TV. It's like, oh, that's a shame. Doesn't matter how it looks, though, if the story's good. Shame, really. Not Chris. Would you like to tell everybody? And that's a controversial take already, and other people now going, wait, what? Not Chris. Would you like to give us the basic plot that sets up the beginning of this two-parter of the Impossible Astronaut? What happens at the beginning of the story?
Amy and Rory. Is that right? Is that the
yeah, they're in the show. Yeah, that's correct.
Amy and Rory. The end.
Our characters.
They are not travelling with the Doctor at the minute.
Which is a horrible trend that carries on after this, but whatever.
And they get an envelope.
Well, they keep spotting him, don't they?
They keep spotting him in history.
In different things. Although they just miss him in Laurel and Hardy. Which is quite a nice visual gag.
And they get a letter.
2 letters. 1 each.
Yeah, 1 each, and then it cuts to River Seong. And she also has a letter, and they converge at this. Is that a word?
Converge, yeah. I mean, they converse once they get there, but
yeah, they converge
and
converse and convert and commerce. To a place. Is it Utah?
Yeah, it's out in the middle of donkeys thingy in the States. It's,
what are we talking about?
Arse end of donkeys.
So they're like, oh, what's going on? What's happened? Obviously, this is the Doctor. And then,
well, yeah, because it's TARDIS blue envelopes. It's it is indeed in. Doesn't bloody say here, but it's in the States.
It's in the Americas.
Because it's by a specific lake at a specific time. They ask him how old he is, and he's 200 years older than the last time they saw him.
Yeah, and he's talking to River, and the
because River breaks out a storm cage. They never show you how she does it, but there's a great reference to the fact she obviously keeps breaking out because like one of the guards goes, "She's doing it again, sir." What? She's packing. And then the next we see her, she's already there at that point in time. Yeah. So it's like, okay, she at some point in her life she's doing like seemingly a life sentence in the storm cage correctional facility, but keeps leaving. And obviously, if she returns to a cell, there's not really much they can do, is there? Other than reinforce how strong it is, but she obviously keeps coming back anyway. It's like, right. It's like Joker in Arkham Asylum logic. It's just like, oh yeah, no, I want to go out for a few months. I'll come back. Don't worry about it. So I like that. They all arrive there, and he's older, and he keeps talking about essentially the day of, Cape Canaveral. Florida. We've been there, and I keep forgetting the name. I just call it NASA.
NASA.
Cape Canaveral.
Cape Canaveral.
Yeah, the original shuttle launch to the moon. To the moon, though.
To the moon, though.
And you're getting swamped by pets.
My God.
And they.
Personal space is a thing that I appreciate.
Personal space.
Goodbye.
She's a cat. Good day. Good gent. And.
What are you doing? Acrobatics.
She's always when we're filming as well. Come on, Dolly. He keeps sort of talking about the day. That was the day that everything changed for humanity. That humanity's first attempt to contact, reach out to the stars and whatnot. An older bloke shows up, who we learn is called Canton Everett Delaware III, who shows up and brings a gasoline can for some reason. Then an astronaut, an honest-to-God astronaut, emerges from the lake like it's perfectly normal for them to do so. The Doctor seems to know exactly what's going on, warns everybody.
And during this, they're having a nice lunch.
Warns everybody that they can't do anything. Like, whatever happens now, don't interfere. And he speaks to this thing out of earshot. He gets shot by it. He starts to regenerate, and he gets shot before he can, and is killed.
He's dead.
Astronaut walks back into the lake with River shooting at it. This bloke's like, oh yeah, he said this was going to happen. You're going to need this. And
they're like, well, how did you know you
he got an envelope as well.
Because they were all numbered?
Yes, is it 5 numbered envelopes? They've got like 2, 3, 4 and 5 between them all. And Rory and River put 2 and 2 together and realised the Doctor's wishes are to burn his body. So they Viking funeral pyre that bad boy and send him out on a thing, and you're like, I'm sorry, did the series just open with the Doctor being murdered? And then you get the best hook for a Moffat series mystery we ever get, as far as like hooks go, which is they go back to the canteen they'd all converged at briefly.
Yeah.
And they see the envelope number 1, and the Doctor pops back in from having to go and get his favourite straw that adds more fizz. And it's the Doctor that's not that long ago left them, like, for their honeymoon period, their new home and everything. He's 900 odd years old, so he's not the one that they met at the lake. He's much earlier.
So everyone's just like,
They can't tell him, but obviously it leads to hijinks ensuing, the whole investigation of the shuttle launch, and specifically events going on around that week in and around Washington and Florida.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah?
I don't really understand this story.
Well, that's the thing, right? So the story of this one individually is that they know that they have to go back to this date, and the president, who's Richard Nixon at this point, pre-scandals...
is getting phone calls.
Is getting phone calls from what he assumes to be a little boy, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Because whenever they mention their name, he assumes that's their name, but later on we realise it's the street names.
Yeah.
It's the junctions, like Hamilton, Jefferson, something or other. It's like his founding fathers of the street names.
Would you not be like, oh, your family's very patriotic?
Obviously, I don't pay attention. But yeah, Nixon, played by Stuart Milligan, does a pretty good job. It's not a caricature. It's got just enough of what you'd expect a Richard Nixon, performance to have in it.
Yeah.
The use of like sort of prosthetics on him is quite good. Like he doesn't look cartoonish. It's like, that's Richard. Yeah. That's Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
I'd buy that. That's Nixon. This is pretty great.
But not enough
he's
to make you feel sick.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing as well. They all talk about how like this is before he starts doing heinous shit. So they don't like paint him as a hero, but they also go, look, the dude became president for a reason, like, but still.
And the Doctor's like, well, do they remember me? And it's like, oh yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, I'll never forget you. And it's sort of like a nice, subversion of the Charles Dickens scene from The Unquiet Dead.
Yeah.
Where it's like, my books, do they last? Yeah, how long? Forever. Like, whereas it's just like, they're not going to forget you, don't fucking worry about it. Anyway, bye, Tricky Dicky, Richard Nixon, see ya.
Nobody likes you, bye.
But they also meet the agent who's investigating the mysterious phone calls, ex-FBI agent, Canton Everett Delaware III, who essentially has been brought in as like a consulting agent. Reason why he's an ex-agent we find out later, but it's because he wanted to get married and he wasn't allowed. By the end of the first episode, it's hinted at why, and by the end of the second episode, we know why. It's because he wanted to get married to his boyfriend, who, is a young black gay man wanting to marry his white gay FBI agent lover in the 60s. Yeah, problems, because society is fucked and always has been, and it's getting better, but still could get much better much quicker if it wanted to hurry its arse along.
Slowly.
But yeah, so it's I do love that little button at the end, which is sort of like depressingly sad, but also quite appropriate for like the time and the sensibilities. That it's like, I wanted to get married, and it's like, don't worry, we'll make it happen. And Nixon sort of assumes the reason why there was a problem is because his partner wasn't white, and prejudices and systemic racism. And he goes like, well, I'm sure we can think. And he's like, yes. It's like, I'm sure you and her, like you and her will be very happy. And he goes like, yes, sir. He and I will, like something like that. And Nixon's always like, one barrier to break at a time, and it's like, Canton's great.
Yeah,
Canton's a great character. Played Mark Sheppard is the actor.
He's very good.
He pops up in a lot of things. I first became aware of him because of Firefly. He's the sort of the Cockney dealer character that Mal runs into a couple of times throughout the series. Genre fans from the 2000s know him from shitloads of programs. Supernatural's another one that he's a regular guest star on.
Oh, really?
He's great. He's one of those actors where you go, you seem great. You seem like the sort of guy who everyone enjoys working with, so they go, oh god, yeah, you should get him on your show. Like, he's one of those actors.
Yeah.
And he does a really good job. So, stuff that we like. Because if you're watching this, you've watched the story. In part one, all the scenes in the Oval Office are great.
Yeah.
The invisible TARDIS, the Doctor sort of assuming control of the situation and then nearly getting shot to death.
He did get shot to death.
The way that Amy, Rory and River aren't telling him what's happening because other him, future him, was like, you can't. Like, there was obviously a suggestion of, nope, because it could obviously disrupt how everything goes. Even though they're fighting against the urge to do that so that their friend doesn't get killed, obviously.
Yeah.
And in the first episode, it doesn't hurt too much when he's immediately standoffish with them. It's just like, right, come on, the hell's going on?
Yeah.
It's a little weird how quickly he becomes nasty, but you understand why he's like, right. Because as soon as he says, like, what is this? Is someone doing this to you? Is someone making you do this?
Yeah.
Like, are you alright? As soon as he says that to Amy, you're like, okay, he's scared. It's not that he's not in the know, it's that he's worried someone's doing something to them or blackmailing them or something.
Yeah.
And as soon as he's like, swear on something important, she goes, fish fingers and custard, and he immediately is just sort of like, okay. Like, he trusts her. He's like, alright, sure. You stay quiet. Where do we need to go? And it's like, great. The legs, the nose, and Miss Robinson. This is the beginning of the continuous references to female companions' body parts that really grates on me after a while. Though Mrs. Robinson is quite a funny inclusion. God, what else? Stuff that I like in this first one. The mystery in episode 1 is set up really well. Because you realise that there are these things that you can only see and acknowledge when you are looking at them, or they're in your peripheral. And when you look away, you forget about them. And the episode establishes, brilliantly, that they sort of leave subliminal suggestions in people's heads. Like when the one says to Amy, like, you should tell the Doctor, like, tell him. Which, at first we think it's, oh, does she need to tell him about what's really going on? She's seen him murdered, and then by the end of the episode you realise, no, it's that she's pregnant. How the Silent knows that? Well, actually, no, that's explained later, I suppose, but like, it sets up the idea that they can subliminally influence things by being forgotten. It's almost like a reverse version of when you have a really intense dream and then you wake up and in 5 minutes you've forgotten what the dream was about and you're like, oh, bugger. It's sort of like the reverse version of that.
Yeah.
Like, you've got no idea what you dreamt of, but you remember a specific thing that you have to get. You know what I mean?
You remember how you feel.
Yeah.
Sort of, but you don't remember why.
Yes. Yeah, it's like the way this in the second episode explains. It's essentially post-hypnotic suggestions the world over. Like, it's like something's gone, hey, do this, do this, do this, do this, and you've not heard it, but it's repeated it 1,000,000 times. So you come away and you go, oh, I should do that thing, and you don't know where the idea came from.
Yeah.
And it sets that up in this first episode brilliantly without anyone explaining it, because you see the Silent say that to Amy in the bathroom, and then she leaves and she's like, I've got to tell the Doctor something. And the agent who was like looking out for her was like, alright, weirdo. And then later on she's like, yep, I've got to tell him, and she can't quite figure out what it is she's meant to say. And then she twigs by the end of the episode as tell him that she's pregnant.
Oh god, excuse
me. Amy's pregnant. That's an interesting development. Because now there's an extra risk factor in them having adventures, as far as the perception at this point of the show is.
Yeah, and
It's like,
never...
holy shoot, there's more of a risk now. It's like you're risking your future with your family by being in danger, not just yourself.
That's never been tackled by
A companion.
Queen.
I like that addition. I think the Silents, I'm going to call them the correct name, the Silents, look great. They're a great design. They're so eerie. They're obviously like meant to be aping the Greys.
Yeah.
But also like a bit of a mix of Men in Black Federal Agent vibe because of the suits, which in turn is either influenced by or accidentally similar to the Slender Man phenomenon, which started to spring up around the same time.
Yeah, from behind, looking at it, if his head were smaller, like a pea, like Slender Man is, it is Slender Man.
Yeah. And I think that's it for positives.
Just the sound that they make is quite creepy.
That like...
Oh no, do you know what it sounds like?
What?
It sounds like water going down a plug.
It does. It sounds like a harsh drain.
Creepy. It just sounds like...
No, but that is kind of weird because what happens to water going down the drain? It vanishes quickly and you can't see it anymore.
Yeah, you don't forget about it.
Like almost like it wasn't there a second ago.
Yeah, I guess.
Which is sort of what they are. Like, oh, there was that thing. Oh wait, no, there wasn't.
Also, I don't really get...
Well, hang on. Well, let's move on to episode 2, because episode 2 is where things get stupid. Episode 1 sets up season-long mystery. Doctor is murdered and has let them witness his murder, but has also invited his younger self along after the fact. So the companion's basically... It's almost like he's saying, you can solve this, or there's something you need to do and this is involved in it. Then the main story of this two-parter is weird phone calls in America at the start, before the moon landing and the shuttle launch to space for the journey to the moon. And there are these aliens operating on the fringes of stuff, and only a couple of our characters interact with them. But they've kidnapped a young girl and put her in a mechanical spacesuit that, when it seemingly goes to attack the Doctor, because Amy, of course, is anticipating that's what it wants to do since she saw it kill him in the future. Yeah. She shoots the spacesuit, not knowing that there is a young girl inside. And the episode ends with Amy confessing she's pregnant. River and Rory, without knowing it, stumbling across a nest of these things. And a scene that's really well played out. And Alex Kingston in this episode especially gets some brilliant stuff to set up the emotional stakes for River as far as her relationship with our titular character goes.
Like going backwards and things.
I love it. She's just like, every time I see him... Yeah, she says, like, it seems like every time we're meeting now, we're meeting in the wrong order. Like, in the reverse order. Every time I see him, I know him a lot more, he knows me a little bit less.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart to think that one day I'm going to see him and look at that face of the man I love, and he's going to have no idea who I am. And it's extra devastating because, of course, we as viewers are like, we've seen it! We know how bad it is! We know how heartbreaking it is for her! And even in this, at the very end of part 2, like when she gives him a snog before they say goodbye, and he's taken aback by it, and he's like, oh, no, it was nice. And you can tell that we know because we've watched it. You know, we've watched him. He's not at that place with her yet. Yeah. On his side of things. Yeah. And she's realised that that's probably the last time she's going to be able to do that, really, in her timeline. It's like, oh my god. So I'm guessing this is a river... This river is a river we're meeting pre the Angels two-parter from last series. Because remember, in the Angels two-parter last series, she says, like she mentions whatever, like, the Pandorica will open and silence will fall. And the Doctor goes, Pandorica, says that's a myth, whatever, and she goes, like, spoilers. And that was, like, the middle of the series. So the river we met in the middle of the last series is one who survived the events of the finale of last series. Mm-hmm. So this river is probably one after her adventure with the Angels and the Byzantium and everything. And, yeah, it's a little... okay. It's one of those where you start to think about it and you go, oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
It's one of those that you really do have to sit there and think about it.
But the basic... the boiling down of it... Yeah, the boiling down to it of the basic emotional core of what she has to go through every time she sees him is what works. Like, that works really well, and Kingston plays it beautifully in this episode. And the cliffhanger is great, of Amy shooting the spaceman, which we, the viewer, and she, the character, does not know, has a little girl inside. It's a really shocking cliffhanger. It's like, oh my god!
Yeah.
And then episode 2, Day of the Moon, happens, and it all falls apart. So we open on Canton hunting down and seemingly killing Amy and Rory, and River like choosing to end her own life by leaping out of a building rather than be caught. And the three of them are covered in tally marks, and we see from River why. It's because every time they witness these things, they make a mark on their skin so that they know, even when they look away, that they've met one. They can look down and be like, "I've seen another one."
Yeah. What if you see the same one?
Well, it's not that. It's more the idea about how many times they've been kept.
What if there's only one?
This is why it's bullshit, because they're gone for 3 months. The Doctor's in Area 51, making its second appearance in the modern era since Dreamland, although in present... Well, no, it's not in present day. It's in the 60s this time, so it's not that long after the events of Dreamland.
Oh, they could have made
There's a bunch of creepy CGI people walking around upstairs. The smell of the 10th Doctor is probably still in the air duct. And they're locking him in this cell that's made of like this special material that's like an outer space material that they've got hold of, that essentially can block out all transmissions and communications from inside or out. The idea being they're imprisoning this dangerous alien, the Doctor, so that no one can communicate with him.
Yeah.
But then when they lock it up, they lock it up with the bodies of his 2 friends inside it in body bags, and Canton locks himself in, and then Amy and Rory burst out the body bags having... Like, the death was faked, so, like...
But why?
Because they've spent 3 months on the run, and then they collect River, who's like, oh, where's River? Oh, she jumped. So then, when the TARDIS appears, because apparently it's been there the whole time, parked where the cell was being built, and no one's bumped into it, sure. And the Doctor's just sat there growing a beard and shitting in his own pants for 3 months for no reason. I don't...
Okay.
So they do it because they're researching their enemy, they're getting to know their enemy. And it's such a Moffat thing. And when I start saying that from this point in our series, folks, it's usually in relation to something that doesn't work. Like, last year, when I was like, it's such a Moffat thing, it was usually something that's like, and it works really well. And then this series is where the turning point happens for me. This is the first series, the modern era, where I went, don't know if I'm enjoying this anymore. And this story is the first one to set me off on that path.
What it's showing to me now is that he's making it less for kids and more for...
Oh yeah, hi kids, watch the companions all get gunned down in the opening minutes of the show. Also, make sure
you're keeping track of what's going on. Make sure that you keep a track of where River and the Doctor are. Their interest will have... They'll be looking out the window by now. They're not bothered. So he's not catering to...
The younger audience
now. He's catering to those who...
The clever audience. The Sherlock audience.
Their pants every time they see... Matt Smith in general.
I don't think that's who it is. What you're saying is the people who go... It's great because it's twisty and turny. And again, if you enjoy this, God, I wish I did too. I wish I enjoyed this story as much as you, person who enjoys the story. Because part 2 is where it shits itself. So they spent 3 months studying their enemy. All they've learned is a basic sort of visual look at them, maybe. And they know that when they look away, they forget about them.
Why is that taking 3 months?
Why is it taking 3 months? Why this level of subterfuge? They have a time machine. Why not just, like, pop out of the current timeline? And also it's that thing that they've started doing now of the resolution to the cliffhanger is shown later in the episode in flashback.
Yeah.
We learn that they ran. And then decided that this was the plan they were going to do.
Why are they on the run?
They're on the run because reasons.
No, really. Why are they on the run? Why is the Doctor?
I honestly don't know.
Why has the Doctor been locked up?
There was a reason in the episode, but it just doesn't ring. Because they wanted the visual of them like getting shot with tally marks all over them, and
but why?
I don't know.
Why?
Because Canton's in on it, so it's like, what's the point?
Why?
What's the point? And they did it. Well, they did it because they needed to study the silence without making it obvious they were studying the silence. But here's the thing:
even if somebody saw it, they'd forget them.
They're everywhere, so the silence would know what they're up to.
I don't understand.
Quick, let's go in this cell where no one can hear what we're talking about, and then let's go inside this blue box in the cell. this blue box that no one can hear what we're talking about when we're inside.
It doesn't make any sense.
Now, later, you could argue that later on they use that cell to contain a Silent, but, like, that Silent is bleeding out and injured, so they could have put it in a fucking creche after hours, and it wouldn't have escaped. Do you know what I mean? Like, they could have literally used, like, a bike lock to chain it to a radiator, and it wouldn't have escaped.
Yeah, I mean,
have
you ever seen one running?
And the fact that it's like, well, they don't want it to escape, is that why the door's wide open? Because they've got that doctor coming in to, like, make sure it doesn't die immediately. Patch its wounds. Just like, what? So, they realise that this is where it gets a little interesting. They've got the basics of the enemy and they understand it to a point. And they demonstrate, again, the subliminal messaging thing where, like, Canton sees one or thinks he sees one and it's a holographic image. They all forget what it looks like the moment the doctor stops broadcasting it.
Yeah.
Which means that it's just them as a whole. Everything about how they work means that they will be forgotten. Even if it's a picture of them, it'll have the same effect. So it's not like a power they have. It's just something that is part of what they are as an existing creature. But Canton turns back and adjusts the Doctor's bow tie, and then doesn't realise. He's like, "Why the hell did I do that?" And it's because then they show you a moment earlier when they were all looking at the Silent. The Doctor said, "When you turn back, adjust my bow tie," and they all looked around, and Canton did it. So it's like, okay, we get it. Subliminal messaging. Why? We learn that the Silents have been using subliminal messaging to lead Earth's development so that they will build a spacesuit. Spacesuits in general, for when they start exploring the stars. But it's so that one specific spacesuit can be built to house and pilot the young girl around. So for the purpose of this immediate story, we, the audience, now assume, right, so this girl's in the astronaut in the future. I guess this story's going to wrap up the entire story that was set up last week. No. Because the young girl's a further mystery. The spacesuit apparently eats her. Like, the idea is she manages to escape it every now and again, and that's why she keeps making the phone calls. Like, maybe when it goes into charging mode or whatever, she escapes it. And then it chases her down in some weird Five Nights at Freddy's level, creepy, like, chased around in a warehouse by a spacesuit thing. Yeah. Which would make for an amazing... Imagine if that was the opening scene.
No.
Imagine if that was the opening scene, this spacesuit, like, chasing her and then gobbling her up. And you're like, oh my god! And then later on you realise, oh, no, it's a suit. Like, she's being worn by it. It's not eating her. But of course, to a young girl, this thing walking around trying to stuff you into the mouth like the helmet, she'd be terrified. Even if it keeps happening and then she keeps escaping, which would lessen how terrifying it is, but whatever. It's just... So, they want the spacesuit built because the spacesuit has a purpose later. Right. But we also learn that they've been here since before the wheel and the fire and all this. So it's like, hang on. Have you always been dressed like that?
What have you been doing?
Since the caveman days, have you been walking around in three-piece suits? Hang on. Is that why we wear suits? And if that's the case, why did we only start wearing suits like this in the 1900s? And approximations in the couple hundred years prior to that? Like, why haven't we been wearing them since the caveman days? Also, the spacesuit's being built, as far as we the viewers know at this point, to kill the Doctor one day in the future at, like, Utah?
Oh, bye, kids' attention
span. So, if all you want to do is kill him, why don't you? Creatures that can appear and only be noticed by the person that is looking at them, who zap a woman in part 1 into ashes with an electric blast. Just kill him? We then, like, when we find their base, their sort of ship in this story, in the latter part of this episode, it's the same kind of ship as the one that was in the Lodger last series, which in the Lodger served its purpose as it's a random spaceship, its pilots are long gone, it's disguised itself as part of this house, and the repair system is trying to find someone who can repair it, but it's all botched.
Yeah.
Worked on its own in that story. Now we know, oh, that ship was part of this species. That's interesting. Is it going to do anything that we saw it do in the Lodger? No? Okay, interesting.
My interest for this.
Wait, so that was a silent...
ship has sailed.
So that was a silent ship. And we know the Silent are around in present day. Oh my god. This story's all about how everything's cyclical. No matter what, the Doctor is going to get shot in 2011 by Lake Utah. Lake Silencio. Yeah? I've just
Yeah.
remembered it's called Lake Silencio, because of course it is. He gets shot by Lake Silencio in 2011. No matter what. What does Amy see on the cliff before the astronaut emerges from the water?
I don't know.
She sees a
A
silent.
silent, yeah.
But aren't they all dead?
Mm.
In the 60s?
Mm.
Oh my god.
I don't understand.
The Doctor faffing around in Apollo 11 is adorable.
Yeah, that's fine.
Nixon sort of presidential hierarching his way out of any further questions from the NASA lot to allow the Doctor to get away with what he needs to get away with is a really fun scene, especially Rory kind of accidentally breaking the model and be like, America, thanks you for your service. And just how fucking awkward he is really entertaining. All the stuff with Canton and Amy in the children's home is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's so good. The guy who's been running it, you realise that it's basically where a bunch of Cylons hibernate.
Yeah.
And
upside down for some reason.
Where they kept the girl for a time. The girl was kept there for a time because there's a room for her. And the guy who runs the place has slowly been driven mad. He's essentially got like sort of, I guess, sporadic amnesia. Like his brain has been broken because he keeps seeing things and then forgetting them all the time.
Yeah.
Every now and again he remembers, and he seems to be the one who's graffitied the words like, get out, leave this place, leave me alone, all over the walls, which is eerie as sin because he thinks the kids are doing it as graffiti, yet there's clearly no children staying there. All that stuff's amazing. That feels like it's right out of an older Moffat script. It's like, this is so cool.
The fact that they have the little recorders in their hands.
It's a great idea. Like, they
yeah.
realise, so this way you can leave yourself a little message. Especially here when Amy goes into that room, is like, there's nothing in here, looks down, her hands are red, she presses it, and it's like, oh god, they're everywhere, there's so many of them, you need to get out. And she's like, looking around the room like, no, there isn't. She looks up and sees them on the ceiling. Like, that's haunting, it's creepy. It's annoying she doesn't heed her own advice, but whatever. Cantor manages to shoot one, which works in their favour because they get more information out of it, because they can obviously keep it, in one place. And then it says, you should kill us all on sight, which they record. And here's the thing I hate the most about this as an individual story. How is it resolved?
They kind of, I can't remember how they do it, but isn't it on TV?
Hijack the broadcast of the moon landing.
To say,
So
these aliens are doing something.
So that live and every other broadcast or archive of it forever contains a moment where a silent appears during the broadcast and says, you should kill us all on sight. And we see people start to, like, in the bar watching the moon landing and stuff, like, there's a silent in there with them, having a pint, and, like, they turn around and they're squaring up to it, and you see, like, agents in the Oval Office, like, one of them sees one and immediately draws his gun. And it's like, okay, so... these things have been influencing mankind since forever, and they're going to get rid of them by killing them. By having humanity just murder them now and forever. Wherever they are in the stars, one of the most famous pieces of archived footage of all time is going to be consistently brainwashing a population here on Earth and out in the stars to murder a bunch of aliens. Please continue, because I am very angry.
If you got a recording of, say, I'm laughing already, of me saying, you should just slap me in the face, and just, like, repeated that over and over again on the TV, would people go, yeah?
Well,
yeah.
No, because...
will.
No, because it's established in these stories that the Silents have this sort of power over people's will.
Does everybody know that?
Everyone will forget they've seen that footage. They just think they've watched the moon landing.
Right.
But how many times are people going to watch that footage? Like, especially then, like in the year of it, they're going to see it on the news, repeated, and everything. It's going to be in museums. We've seen that footage in Cape Canaveral, like it's part of the exhibitions and everything there. Like, on a massive freaking screen, on an IMAX screen, as part of a presentation.
But wouldn't people
be watching that forever, and in the middle of it, there's a subliminal message from these aliens that can influence your will subliminally
to
kill them on sight. So
Oh, I get it. All right, okay, that makes sense.
It's not like they've just randomly dropped a motivational ASMR tape on the planet. Like, these aliens have the power to influence your will.
To me, it was like it's like they were just going, "Oh, you should kill these people," and then everyone was like, "Yeah, we should," for no reason. But now you say that.
What have we spent the last 5 series watching the Doctor deal with emotionally?
The trauma of the Time War.
Yeah, and why is he dealing with it? It's not just because his people are gone.
It was like genocide, kind of 2 races.
2 races, committed by who?
Him.
And he was ashamed of it?
Yeah.
And he just committed...
Genocide.
He just forced the human race, through brainwashing, to commit continuous genocide. Forever.
Yep. He's okay with that.
He also doesn't know what the Silents want. He knows they built a spacesuit for this girl. That's all he knows. So it's not even like he's going, I'll stop them from killing me by killing them. Because we know it happens, and we know that there are still Silents in 2011 because one of them's watching them at the lake. I hate Day of the Moon. That might sound hyperbolic, but I think it's awful. It's so beautifully shot, and it has so many great sequences in it. But at the end of the story, what has it accomplished? It ends on a bunch of mini, we'll get round to this, cliffhangers. Like,
I'll tell you what we do know.
Amy's pregnant, but she's not pregnant. She thought she was pregnant, but she isn't. But the scanner says she is, but she isn't, but she is, but she isn't. Cliffhanger for later. We know that the Silents built the spacesuit no matter what, and the young girl is missing. We see her in an alleyway in New York 6 months later, sick and injured, and then she regenerates. Mystery. We'll get back to that later. The Doctor isn't asking any more questions about who brought them all together, or why.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll get to that later.
Did he not recognise his own handwriting?
Amy has a vision of an eye patch wearing woman looking through a hatch in a doorway. And there are photos of her with the little girl as a baby in the little girl's room. We'll get to that later. Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon is not a 2-part story. It's a 2-part story in concept that's hijacked by a shitload of threads that will be answered, quote, later, unquote. And it suffers massively because of that.
But we do find out that River's a screamer.
Oh, this is where the innuendos get really thick, yeah. We also have a weird, unnecessary, maybe Amy's still in love with the Doctor and not actually Rory thread in these 2 episodes.
Oh, I'm tired of that.
That is completely pointless because it was concluded as part of Series 5. Series 5 ends with the whole, no, it's you. This guy's the guy I was obsessed with because he was like my childhood crush, but it's you. Like, you're the person I love, it's why we're married, yeah? Mm-hmm. That was resolved at the end of Series 5. The last time we saw these characters, canonically, they were having a weird kinky honeymoon, dressed as a policewoman and a Roman soldier.
Don't kink shame.
It's a kid's show. I'm going to kink shame.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're fine. They've got a house. They've spent months together. They seem to be really happy. What? Now, obviously, foreshadowing, I'm going to touch on this briefly because normally we just focus on the stories that we've watched. But knowing where the Amy arc of Series 6 goes, especially the first half of the series, it's interesting because on the rewatch of this, I realised when we had Amy and when we didn't have Amy anymore. Which I won't elaborate on because you've forgotten about it.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean.
But you can see where in the story, and I think that's the excuse for the 3 months later, so that this can believably occur, the thing that will be referred to later. But, bullshit. You wrote yourself into a corner there, show. You could have done it any other way. What do you think of the 2-parter overall? Are you like me? Like, certain moments are really, really, really cool, and then the rest of it is just pointless waffle?
Are you asking me or the audience?
You, sir. Because we've got one more story to talk about.
I'm not a big fan of it, because a lot of it doesn't make sense.
At the time, that's the biggest crime. It's not like knowing where it goes, it doesn't make sense. Because that's true too.
Yeah, but at the time I was just a bit like, oh, look at the set. Look at the location.
Yeah, filming in America. Looks great.
Yeah, you did a good distraction there, show. But your story still doesn't make any fucking sense. But I am sorry, Alex Kingston. I'm sure you are a wonderful person.
Apparently is.
I have not seen you in anything else, I don't think. I hate River Song. I cannot stand
Now,
her.
you already couldn't stand her prior to this marathon. Is this the series that did that to you?
Yes, it is. Because
I've been a little harsh on you the last couple of series. Something like, right, come on, I know you don't like her, but forget that for this story. And each time you have come out of it going, yeah, no, fair, like she's really good in this, and the character makes sense being here, and fair enough. I can see. I knew as we were watching this, the moment she did the I'm quite the screamer line, I was like, this is it, isn't it? This is the series where 2011, you went, nope, done liking this character in any way, shape, or form.
I've been if you've been watching this since the beginning, you know that I've been through quite the circles of I don't like this person. Oh no, I actually love them now. Like Sarah Jane.
Speaking of which, this episode was broadcast 4 days after Liz Sladen passed away, so the broadcast was dedicated to her.
Yeah, bless her. I didn't like Sarah Jane from when I'd seen random stories
as a kid
and stuff. But then I grew to love her. Didn't like Martha. Now I love Martha.
Right? Yeah. Yes, that was my favourite transformation during this thingy.
And
you're holding out hope that that effect is going to happen to Clara in some degree.
I know it's not. I know it's not. But I was hoping that it would happen to River, even though I cannot stand that character. And I don't know. I didn't think that I'd go, I love River Song. No. I thought I'd go, okay, yeah, she's not as bad as
you remember.
I remember. She is, though. I completely understand that this might be some people's favourite character. That is absolutely fine. I'm not saying
and again,
that,
up to this point, I have a real fondness for the character up to this series. After this, I don't like the character again until her last canonical appearance in Capaldi's era. And that's a story you've not seen. And I think when you watch that one, you'll be like, oh no, she was amazing in this.
And I look forward to that.
Yeah.
But I don't like how cocky she is. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, like it was less weird in the last few series because it was part of the whole, oh my god, she's one step ahead of everybody else. And now that she's part of the gang more often, it feels weird that she's sort of...
The Silence in the Library, I thought she was great in that.
Mm-hmm.
She was really good in that.
Angel two-parter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was some little things, but I was like, yeah, no, great.
Two-part finale last year.
I can't remember.
The Pandorica opens, the Big Bang.
Yeah,
great.
Kind of annoying.
Dalek,
but...
I'm River Song, check your records again.
That was badass. Was badass.
Yeah.
This, no, I don't want that innuendo. I don't want it. I don't want it. You're very cocky, and that is part of your character. Absolutely fine. You play it, Alex Kingston, really well. I don't like that. I think that's really annoying.
The character's great, Sonia. Yeah.
Really bad.
We do need to...
knowing what's coming, I'm just like, no!
We do need to move on to the next one because the battery's at halfway.
Yeah, I'm not at that point where I'm in love with this character. Not even a little bit.
Can we talk about a pretty nothing episode?
Sure.
Curse of the Black Spot?
Oh... I remember being really excited about this.
I don't... You know what? The promo images that came out of Amy Pond in a pirate hat... And a pirate hat of the thing we're going to talk about, yeah. The promo images that come out of Amy in a pirate hat with a big old coat and a cutlass
you were a little bit turned on. Yes.
Yeah, sure. But, it was like, this looks fun. Companions getting involved. It's a pirate ship in the middle of the night. There's some sea monster or spirit attacking them. This could be really cool. And the third episode... There's no liquid in there, sorry. The third... Luna's causing chaos. The third episode sometimes has been a historical, and here was another one. It's sort of a base under siege story.
Yeah.
Like Troughton era. It's the idea that they're in one place, and there's someone trying to get them, and they've got to figure out how to get out of the situation.
Yeah.
Look, it's a Troughton story with the first modern Doctor who's clearly most influenced by Troughton. This could be a lot of fun. it's just kind of bleh. I think that's his biggest crime. It's same, but it's just kind of bleh. Stephen Thompson writes an okay script. Some of the dialogue's a bit, ugh, but the structure works fine. It begins a trend that I don't like in Doctor Who, modern Doctor Who, that the Moffat era really leans into from this point, which is, there was no threat.
Right.
It was all a misunderstanding. Because that can work sometimes and be really fun. But when it keeps happening, I'm like, that's really boring. One thing I like about this show is how it can be a bit scary and how it's got really inventive baddies and monsters. And
that's the point.
I'm not saying that everything has to be black and white, but...
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Bit of excitement, bit of threat.
Yeah, like it's Lily Cole is the siren in this, who off the top of my head, I've only ever seen her in one of the things. She was in The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, and she's really good in that.
Well, she was originally a model, wasn't she? So
she's a model, actor, and I guess she gets parts based on the fact she's very quirky looking.
Yeah.
Like, she has a very... I do not mean this in an insulting way at all. She has a very alien vibe about her, very otherworldly, very fantasy kind of vibe about her appearance.
She's very beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, she's sort of... It's like someone's taken a fairy and brought it to life and gone, and now you're an actor and a model. Like, she's got this very sort of otherworldly vibe to her.
Yeah.
So I get why they've cast her as the siren.
Yeah. It's
also just like, a bit of a shame that that's kind of the be-all and end-all of why you cast her in the role. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Kind of felt that at the time as well, because she was more popular. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's a mum now, so she's...
Is she?
Yeah, she focuses more on her kids. But yeah, she was very popular at the time, and so
she was everywhere, billboards and everything, like for different campaigns. I mean, I've just now clicked on her name on the cast list. She was doing stuff like Alexander McQueen, Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Jean Paul Gaultier. Like, she was in a lot of stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, but even then, it was like, what? Why?
And then to not really use her, it's like, oh, that's kind of pointless then.
I could have sworn she talked in it, but obviously not. But
no, she just goes.
I don't know about you, but going into this at the time, I had high expectations because I am a fan of pirates. Jinx.
She's a sucker for a pirate.
Yeah.
Folks.
You think of that girl that grew up loving Jack Sparrow and times that by 1,000. Yeah.
And then kill that girl and whip the camera around to reveal that you're the one holding the cutlass that killed them.
Yes. You have her.
Highlander style. Like, there can be only one.
I won't go into it, but I was...
There are stories, but we'll save it for another time.
I was and am a big fangirl. So I was like...
Pirates of the Caribbean 1, 2 and 3.
And 4.
A little bit 4.
I like 4. I love 4. Stranger Tides is...
You like 4 because it's also got Ian McShane in, who's one of your, one of your,
old man crushes.
Yeah, Dilf/Gilf? I don't know.
Ew! Don't put it like that.
Do you or do you not fancy the pants off of it?
Yeah.
Perfectly acceptable internet terminology.
Right, okay, whatever. But anyway, so I remember seeing the trailer for this and going, woo! Pirates, yay!
And, real life pirate, Captain Avery in it, played by Hugh Bonneville. Henry Avery was not a nice person. So it's like, okay, nice. They're gonna... What?
Hugh Bonneville's not nice.
I have no idea about Hugh Bonneville personally. Henry Avery.
Sorry.
And there's one of his crew in this talks about, like, I've seen him slaughter hundreds of men with no remorse.
He said K. For some reason I saw him kiss a man.
He went around the 70s kissing men. And in this but if not with their consent though. So that's why he was that's why he was a bastard. I'm going to click on Hugh Bonneville now and see if there's any controversies.
Don't do that. Don't ruin Hugh Bonneville for me.
None I can see off the top of my head, but that's on Wikipedia.
Don't ruin Downton Abbey.
Oh dear. Henry Avery, pirate. His child Toby is smuggled aboard the ship, it turns out.
People keep dying.
Well, he's smuggled aboard the ship because it turns out his mum, Avery's wife, is dead.
Yeah.
And Avery didn't know.
From the plague, assuming.
Some or other, because the kid's got what have you. But yeah, basically, pirates.
Oh, what is it he's got?
I can't remember. Is it TB?
No.
Tuberculosis? No. Who's got... Why am I thinking he's got TB? I recently listened to the Sixth Doctor audio from the Destiny of the Doctor series, and there's a character who has TB, and the Doctor's like, yeah, we can't save them because it might pervert the course of history, and Perry's like, you're a monster. Just because it's one of the little guys, and then by the end of the story, after everything that goes on, it's a story with Chris Columbus, and it does not paint Columbus in a good light correctly. It's really good. By the end of it, the Doctor's like, fine. And he's like, I have determined that this man does not greatly affect the course of history in a way that would pose a risk, and as such, I'm going to go and give him the bloody TB jabs. And Perry's like, good! And it's like, well done. It's a great story, and Nicola Bryant reads the heck out of it. But the point is...
So let's talk about that instead.
Nope.
So...
the siren, people dying. It seems that anytime anyone... At first you think it's anytime someone spills blood, the siren appears, sort of enchants them, and then explodes them with a touch. And then we learn as it goes on, no, it's not blood. It's any ailment at all.
Yeah.
Cut, sickness, fracture, sprain, she will take you. Just before she does, you're marked like a stamp, and because it's a pirate story,
the black spot.
A black spot that appears on people's hands.
But the black spot just makes me think of Muppets Treasure Island.
We get oh god, we get the ticking clock element because obviously they're on this ship and the pirates have been picked off one by one over time. But then Rory gets caught by a sword when Amy tries to save the Doctor and Rory from going over the plank, walking the plank, and it means that obviously they've got the motivation for our characters is one of our main characters is going to get exploded, so we need to solve this. I love the idea of this thing appearing out of water, but then they realise it's not water, it's reflections, meaning that Avery's got to sacrifice all the gold that they're smuggling.
All of his treasure.
And his hubris stops him from getting rid of the crown, which in turn is the thing that gets his son killed, as quotation marks, by the siren. And the Doctor has a proper go at him, and it's like, is it worth it? How much is it all worth now? That's a great scene. Matt Smith does some fantastic, I have long, floppy, gel-filled hair in the rain, this was a terrible mistake acting. Karen's fun, Arthur's fun, Bonneville does a decent job, the crew do a decent job, Lily Cole, with what little she's given, does a decent job.
I like that it's one setting.
Yeah, it's proper Troughton, like
Yeah.
one location.
And
how do we get out of this?
I really like the set. Like they full on think it's a siren and a mermaid.
Yeah.
So they've got
sea witch and the devil.
Exactly.
Especially because she turns red when she's angered. It's like and you realise later that's not anger. That's a warning thing saying get away from things.
Yeah. And then they've got loads of totems and
like dream catchers and skulls and
to kind of ward her off, and it's like she ain't no siren.
Because we learn that basically it's two ships parked in the same spot. One of them's a space vessel that's sort of on the same physical plane but a shunt out of sequence. Sort of like when we've seen Sarah Jane and stuff with like the TARDIS and the guys during the wedding of Sarah Jane, they were 1 second out of sequence.
Yeah.
With Sarah Jane and Peter and the Trickster. So it's like, okay, that's kind of cool. Because it turns out it's a med bay. It's a ship without any crew, because the crew all died of... They got War of the Worlds. They died of Earth germs. And they've been dead a long time, and the med bay... The medbay hologram service thing, which is the siren, took on a human form to blend in.
Oh, like Star Trek.
And went looking for people to cure. Yeah, and because they're stuck on the same spot, because that's the whole thing as well. They make a point of like the wind seems to have died down, and the ship's been stuck in this one place for 8 days, and this siren's picking them off one by one every time someone is injured. And then at first you think, oh, that's the reason why the water's still, because they're not moving, the wind's died down, and the still water is what she comes out of. Mm. And then later on they realise it's jewellery. So, of course, the reason the ship's not moved and there's been no wind or anything in that immediate area is because they're just stuck inside another ship. They're just stuck there. So it all makes sense. Like, it all works out.
Do we find out why she sings?
It's an anaesthesia.
Oh, yeah.
So she basically gets you doped up and like comfortably giddy and chilled out.
Life support.
Yeah, because we then learn that because she's not learned how to cure earthbound ailments, she's basically just keeping people alive as long as she can.
Yeah.
Which the easiest way to do that is in suspended animation, like just keeping them in essentially just, in a coma, an induced coma.
Yeah.
She's never had to deal with someone drowning, so like Amy basically has to sign a form, like shows that she's married to Rory, like they communicate. She
takes responsibility.
Non-verbally takes full responsibility, and then they resuscitate Rory in the most. You're a first aider.
Let's not even go there.
Yeah, so let's not even start.
Rory would be dead again.
It also felt like that sequence lasted long enough to pad the episode out to a normal episode runtime, rather than long enough to dramatically deliver that sequence with any weight.
Yeah.
It also ends with Rory and Amy being like, "Oh, lovely, lovely, everything's great," and then the Doctor being like, "Oh, she's pregnant, not pregnant, pregnant, not pregnant." Amy hallucinates the character who at this point is just referred to and uncredited as Eye Patch Lady again. So you go, "Oh, so this is the series arc. What was Utah about then?" And then Henry and Toby, because Toby can't be cured, and his crew can't necessarily be cured. I can't remember now, but they go off into the stars because the ship's just stuck there otherwise. And
I like that he says a ship's a ship.
Yeah, that he sort of pieces together things about the TARDIS while the Doctor's. It's cool to see historical characters in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Like, or just people from periods like in the past, because they have no frame of reference for the sort of technology in any way. Like, they'd look at the phone on the outside and go, "The hell is that?" Like, so it's sort of fun to see how they react to the big spaces, and the fact that Avery's just sort of like, "Oh my god, this is incredible! It's impossible! It shouldn't work like this." And is that the break? Yes, and that's the compass, and it's like, oh, so he manages to figure out the ship, and cute notion, bunch of pirates who can't really leave the ship for long periods of time, fly off into the stars, and it's like, that's kind of cool.
Because obviously all of his crew are in there.
I don't know if Stephen Thompson wrote this, but it's a trait we're going to see a lot from Moffat going forward. The ideas of characters who shouldn't be out in space just randomly going off into space with a spaceship. Let's talk about the best thing about this episode. The vanishing pirate.
Yay! This was stressful.
So, 2 pirates, aside from Avery, are left. Avery and the Doctor have gone off to do their thing. There are 2 pirates left. Toby, Amy and Rory, and they lock themselves in the water store. Both the pirates decide they are going to mutineer. Well, they're commit mutiny.
Yeah.
They're going to get as much gold as they can, get in a boat, and piss right off, and maybe kill Avery along the way if they have to, and take charge of this vessel.
Harsh.
One of them gets cut by Toby. Like, they really, and the actors themselves do a great job. The way they're squaring up to Toby and like trying to talk him down and mess with him is great. It's really well played by everybody. And then Toby takes a sword and he's like, "You don't know how to use a cutlass, boy," whatever. He's like, "I don't need to," and he just cuts one of them gently.
Was it played by the Hitcher?
Let's say he cut. Boy, he cuts. Let's say he cuts Pirate 1.
Yeah.
And Pirate 2's like, "Oh my god,
I'm on it."
After they all leave that room, we see Pirate 1 get thingy because it comes out of the jewellery and takes him. Yeah?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, he leaves the room, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he leaves the room.
He's like,
and he gets taken.
Look this shit on.
That's Pirate 1, the one who got cut. We then have several scenes of Amy, Rory and Toby sort of hunkering down, trying to get some sleep in that room and just like rest, because they can't go anywhere, so they may as well just rest.
Yeah.
And then when the Doctor and Avery return, the 3 of them leave. There's no sign of Pirate 2. Pirate 2 is not there. Pirate 2 never appears in the story again, except at the end when all the crew are together.
I remember sat there thinking, "Oh, it must be behind him." And then at one point, we both kind of looked at each other, didn't we? We were like, "Where did all the pirate go?"
Now, I've looked it up. Apparently there was a deleted scene where he left as well.
Yeah.
And something other happens, and I think he ties himself to the mast. A sort of a reference to the siren mythology of old, where people like tie themselves to the mast so that when sirens ascend on your ship, they'll do their thing and they'll try and charm you away, and then eventually they'll go, "Ah, fuck it," and they'll leave, and then you untie yourselves, and you're like, right, because you couldn't physically follow them.
I made it.
So it's sort of like a reference to that, and of course it doesn't matter because she still just touches him and evaporates him anyway. That was cut for time, for effects, for budget, I don't know. But there was obviously no way they could work around it.
So, like,
so they in the editing room just went, Sonnet, he just isn't in it anymore.
Having said that, though, we didn't notice first time we watched it, clearly.
Back in the day, no.
And now we're...
On this rewatch the other night, it was like, what on earth?
Film students
That's...
like...
Oh, yeah,
what?
Exactly. Since our film student brains have evolved, we've made things. I've worked in TV and edit. I've done loads of editing myself over the last decade and a bit. I'm just like, either they had no option whatsoever, or whoever was in that room went, nah.
I love that. That's the best thing about this episode.
Which is weird, which says so much about it overall. Overall, it's just kind of a, nah. I don't think it's as bad as people let on. People go, "Oh, it's a rubbish one." I think it's rubbish. It's just not anything.
It's not anything. I mean, it's
which is almost worse, if anything, because like a crap one you can at least joke about.
I think it's it's like a palate cleanser after what you just witnessed.
Yeah.
So stressful storyline. Keep up with everything that's going on. Don't forget a single thing. And then this one is like, just breathe a minute.
What I love about this is you saw the Next Time trailer at the end of this one. You went, I have no idea what that is. And that's got me very excited because it's the best story of this series.
I know that she's the TARDIS. That is literally it, though.
What do you guys think of Impossible Astronaut, Day of the Moon, and Curse the Black Spot? Are we in agreement? Are we in agreement? Or
do we have an accord?
Do we have an accord?
You sounded like Jack and then went into Barbosa then.
Yeah, because why not?
I liked it.
Thanks. Do you guys like these stories?
A whole bushel of fezzes.
A bushel of fezzes? He wears a Stetson now. Stetsons are cool. And then he gets shot off immediately. Which is cute because in that moment it's he's trying to find another hat, and then River immediately is like, fuck no, and shoots it off his head. But then he wears it again later in the series, so it's like, oh, never mind.
Is that the robot cowboy one?
Even though the Doctor who wears the Stetson at the start of that story is the one who dies. So 900-odd-year-old him later on this series wearing a Stetson is like, wait, what? Actually, no, that makes sense because he takes the hat. And
my brain's going to explode.
Yeah, anyway. Point is, I didn't have a great time. Next time, we are talking the rest of Series 6A. Because the mid-season finale happens in this show. This is the one series that, up to this point where halfway through there's a clear, is that it? Point. Because there was a break in broadcasting. It went out earlier in 2011, and then the rest of the series carried on later that same year. Later, that very same B.
So I liked doing this purely because of that missing pirate. That was the best thing about watching these three.
Next week, we talk about the Doctor's wife, the Rebel Flesh and the Almost People, and my favourite Smith finale after Big Bang Pandora opens, even though it's the mid-season finale, A Good Man Goes to War. Because it's just fun and ridiculous.
Is this the one with them? Which is the one with the...
Well, let's just watch it and find out, shall we?
The robot cowboy.
The what?
Robot cowboy?
Robot Cowboy? What, A Town Called Mercy? No, that's next series. We've got a bunch of stuff to watch before then. Goodbye, folks.
Goodbye.
As soon as we stop this video, you'll forget you watched it because the silencer in it. You should genocide them all on sight. Just like the Doctor says.
You just want to slap me in the face.
Oh, God.
Don't you just want to slap me in the face? Don't